I'm Brandon and this is Video Game History, a show where I'll take a look back at a certain franchise of video games and retrospectively review them. This week we have yet another Powerpuff Girls game. Cartoon Network are really milking this cash cow dry. This installment is titled Him and Seek and was released on October 29, 2002, the same day as Dexter's Laboratory Chess Challenge, which I mentioned in my last review. As usual, the game was published by BAM. However, this game was developed by Vicarious Visions. Vicarious Visions are a legit developer who had a pretty extensive pedigree before they got their hands on the Powerpuff Girls, and they've gone on to develop about a gajillion games since. This is the first time a Cartoon Network game has been entrusted with a seriously reputable developer, so I'm optimistic. This could be the first time we get a good Cartoon Network game since Robot Rampage. According to GameRankings, this is the best Powerpuff Girls console game, as it sits on a pretty healthy 69%. EAGB Advance gave the game a 3 out of 5, Nintendo Power a 3.6 out of 5, and IGN a 7.5 out of 10. That's 3 pretty great reviews, so I'm optimistic for ones as I head into this game. So, when I looked up what kind of game this was before playing, the Powerpuff Girls wiki described this as an RPG. A Powerpuff Girls RPG sounds awesome, but this couldn't be further from the truth. There's nothing even remotely present in this game that makes it close to being an RPG, so whoever wrote that is an idiot. What this game essentially is a side-scrolling beat-em-up. The story for this game is barely present. Miss Keen sends all the kids of Pokeoaks out on a scavenger hunt. That's basically the full extent of the story. Eventually on their travels to collect everything they run into bad guys, but it feels weird that the central story isn't about a villain, at least initially, but I'll come back to that later. The combat is very straightforward, with B button being your attack button. You also have the ability to shoot projectiles and can use a special super move when you collect enough power-ups. However, it's never really necessary to use anything but your melee attack. There's no nuance to the combat, which means each enemy encounter is no more than a minor annoyance. Outside of the opening stage, you play as all 3 of the girls and are able to toggle through each of them. Maybe it's a consequence of being aimed at kids, but this game is laughably easy. If the combat being incredibly straightforward wasn't enough, you also receive no punishment for dying. Seriously, you might as well not even have health, as you aren't even sent back to a checkpoint or anything. You basically respawn right where you were. Just because it is a kids game doesn't mean you have to make the game have no challenge whatsoever. Because you're on a scavenger hunt, Him and Seek basically becomes Fetch Quests the video game. And it's not like it takes much effort to find the majority of these items, as most of the time you'll run across them accidentally. The only time I struggled to find something was the very last item out of 26. The best part, as has been the case for most Cartoon Network games so far, is the boss battles. You'll encounter mostly all of the classic villains from the show, and each battle is unique and much better than the standard gameplay. Vicarious Visions clearly put a lot of thought into these, with the girls needing to attack various weaknesses to do damage. Alternatively, some of the boss battles involve surprisingly fun minigames. Battling the Gangrene Gang involves you playing pinball, while Oogie Boogie's boss fight is done in the style of a rhythm game, similar to Dance Dance Revolution. At one point you play as Mojo Jojo as he escapes from prison, and the game turns into a version of Frogger, which again is a fun little change of pace. All of these minigames can be accessed from the main menu once you've played them in the main story. The quality of the game takes a major hit once you have to head to Him's lair for an item. This level is absolutely terrible. Here the level scrolls, something that isn't done anywhere else in the game, and you have to find the correct portals to advance. Doing this becomes incredibly tedious and grinds the pace of the gameplay to a halt, which is jarring compared to how the rest of the game is played. I also found I was able to glitch through walls instead of being crushed by them if I held up or right on the directional pad, which completely defeats the purpose of scrolling in this level. Once you get all of the items for the scavenger hunt, it turns out that Him actually altered the list of items that Miss Keen handed out, which explains why she's making us go collect things from villains. Him's master plan was to rile up all the villains so he could reunite the Beat-Alls and they could try and take out the Powerpuff Girls together. Initially I thought this little plot twist meant there was a bunch of game left, however it just immediately jumps into a Mega Man style boss rush, which signals the end of the game. This game being called Him and Seek feels kinda weird, considering Him isn't even relevant until the last 15 minutes. It almost feels like Vicarious Visions made a scavenger hunt Powerpuff game, then thought it would be too hard to market so slapped Him's name on the box. The most annoying thing, and what left a very sour taste in my mouth, was that the game froze during the boss rush. This game is literally 90 minutes to 2 hours long, so I hadn't bothered to save and there was no prompting to save or auto-saving, so I lost all my progress. Having a game crash like this is infuriating, but I guess it teaches me a lesson to save often. I did YouTube a long play of the game and saw that I was literally 30 seconds away from beating it, as I was in the middle of battling Mojo and just about to take on him. The ending is also just a dinky little cutscene, so I really didn't miss out on much.
They're cute.
Who are you calling cute?
They're adorable.
We love you too!
And they're saving the world. Girls in their first movie,
Yeah, we did something really good.
the Powerpuff Girls movie. Rated PG. Starts Wednesday, July 3rd.
The Powerpuff Girls Him and Seek is an okay game. It doesn't fall into the category of being broken or the category of being just a flat out terrible game like many other entries so far. However, I can't bring myself to call it good. There are some good elements present, such as the boss battles and mini-games. However, the fetch quest gameplay is pretty boring, and if the game was any longer than 2 hours, it would have been an even bigger chore to play through. I think the game definitely would have benefited from being more about the villains and less about scavenger hunting. Having said that, Vicarious Visions have probably made the second or maybe even the best Cartoon Network game so far.